Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Masha Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. In today's episode, Michelle and I are speaking with founder and product coach Vincent Pavero about how he is using the session replay tool PostHog. So let's dive in. How are you doing, Vincent?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And nice to meet you, Matt and Moshe.
Good to meet you as well. Welcome to the show. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Vincent. Welcome to the show. We are delighted to have you over here. You are a founder of a company called Homeric, and then you are also a product coach and product consultant. So you have a lot of stuff on your hands.
Oh, I'm definitely busy enough. I'm a product coach. And what I realized when working with large organizations is that if you want to coach at scale and have a long-lasting impact, I think we need some technology to help coaches and practice leaders to spread practices and assess also their adoption across the board in large organizations. So yeah, I built my own platform, and then now that platform is sold to many other people. So we are a platform to manage your coaching or transformation initiative, and basically you can create a playbook of practices. But where we are different is that for each practice, you can instruct AI to explain how you want to measure if it's actually applied or not by the teams that you support, and then we do all the tracking and monitoring, so we can help teams to understand and adopt the right behaviors. And also we make all the measurements so we can have all the benchmarks and progress tracking for the reporting aspect of coaching.
Oh, very nice. So maybe we should.
Sounds like we might need an episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you happy to come back?
Yeah,
awesome.
We do have episodes that we're doing on startups, and we usually talk with those like early stages startups. So we talk with the founders. And this sounds like a tool, like you're saying, you are a product coach, so it does help product teams and organizations, even beyond the product team, I would guess.
Yeah, absolutely. You can create any type of playbook on our platform. So it can be an agile transformation. You create your agile playbook. But if it's about product practices and the product operating model, you just create a playbook around this. And you can increase your product maturity.
Awesome. So let's keep that for another show. We definitely can have you back. How did you get to product? This is always something that is interesting for us to learn.
Oh, that's a great question. So I was very fortunate and lucky that my first job after graduating was at NASA. And I was working on space sensors, actually, particle sensors that are now installed on the space station. Wow. And my boss was someone, of course, absolutely brilliant. And he told me something that I will always remember. He said, Vincent, understanding the problem is 80% of the solution. And his point here was that the biggest risk we have when we create stuff in technology is creating useless things. And so how to avoid the waste is really by, doing some discovery, identifying, what matters, what does not matter, what's valuable, usable, feasible, and viable. And when I understood this, this is how I became a product manager, because this is what I wanted to focus on. So after my first job, it was actually my only technical position. Went back to, I was in France at the moment, and I had my first startup experience. So I was the first product manager, and I grew up with a company, and always been in product since that moment.
Nice. So wait, you live in Montreal, but you're originally from France, and there is NASA in France, or you worked in the US?
So I was traveling a lot. So I started to work in the border between France and Geneva at the CERN, which is where you have the particle accelerator, the LHC in English.
Yeah.
And this is where I was working, actually. So for phase 1, and then for phase 2, I went to the US for a couple of months to prepare everything before the lunch. And
so cool. Wow.
So that was an amazing experience.
Very privileged.
I'm sure this sounds really cool. This sounds really cool. No, that's every time we talk with people about their background and how they got to product, it's always so interesting to hear.
Yeah, so
You,
diverse.
you,
So diverse.
I'm not sure you grew up by saying, I want to be a product manager, right? You
Right.
may say, I want to build things, or I want to study markets or whatever, depending on your background. But you need something else, in your life to say, oh, that thing pushed me into product. I
Hmm.
think that's a recurrent pattern for product managers.
Yeah,
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 that's a pretty unique thing too. Like you think about accountants and lawyers and stuff like that. These trades have been around so long. With product management not having been around as long, you get these diverse backgrounds, and yeah, like Moshe said, it's always very exciting to hear
yeah.
where we
Certainly.
all come from.
Amazing. So the topic of our show today is PostHog, and this is in our series for the session replay. And one interesting thing also about PostHog is I believe it's the first product we're talking about, which is an open source product. So there is not a lot of products for product people that are open source. Why do you think is that?
Oh, I think first there is a question of mindset from the founding team. What's amazing with PostHog, if you go to the website and you start digging, their positioning and philosophy about things is incredibly strong. They took the time to document everything about the why. This is how we're developing the product and why. And you can see that they believe that open source is very important to scale, to offer better products. So they contribute to that ecosystem. And what's, for example, very different is when you are on their website, they have their kind of manifesto. They explain the principles behind PostHog, and then the feature page is equivalent to the documentation page. And there is no difference between documentation and website, and also some community features. So when you're on a feature page, you have the official feature presentation, plus the docs, plus the, for example, questions from the community.
Mhm.
And all that community-centric approach is very strong with them. They
Mhm.
are at the service of developers, and they grew the product by building a community of developers. So it's really at the core of everything they do. I was very sensitive to that positioning, definitely. And yeah, this is one of the reasons that I think we have a very interesting, not to say strong product.
Mhm. I mean, when you were saying that, and as I was asking this question, I thought maybe most of the open source products out there are more geared to engineers than to product people, and maybe that's why they have interest in building them. Where the product people that are building product, they are more geared to the business and trying to make money, and maybe that's why they're not doing it as an open source. I'm not really sure, where
Yeah.
it's come from.
Yeah,
But
that's an interesting question. And I think the fact that open source is not aligned with business is more a myth, right? Because you can have great products and make money with open
yes,
source, even
yes,
though some people will think, oh, open source equals free, which is not true, by the way. So
right.
when it's free, you cannot make any money.
But that's how it
Some other,
started. That's how it
yeah,
started. And then people
yeah.
found ways to monetize it and to actually
Hmm.
create good businesses from that.
It was, I guess, definitely true, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah,
But to be honest here, this is my original view on open source. If we go back 15 years ago, I thought that open source, this is is it shady, right? It's open to everybody. So if someone can find a bridge, it's public, right? You can just leverage it. I think I needed more experience to fully realize the benefits of having a community of developers contributing to the product, and also the fact that those are bricks that you can leverage to build other things, right? And those other things can be you
yeah,
have to pay for them,
yeah,
right? And also you can protect them. So at the end, now I know many startups, very strong startups, by the way, and scale ups. They have a layer of foundations that is open source, but then of course they have their added layer on the
yeah,
top of it,
exactly.
and this is how they make a difference. And
Yeah,
I see more and more technical leaders, CTOs, really saying, open source can really kickstart you, right? And your product, and then you build on the top of it. And it's a way to be very fast for your go-to market.
yeah,
So yeah, I think everything is very different from 15 years ago. And now
absolutely.
open source definitely rhymes much more with quality and reliability. And maybe it was already true 15 years ago, but definitely that was not the perception I had.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about PostHog and what is it, first of all, before we dive into the session replay functionality.
Yeah. So PostHog is so I'm not from PostHog. I don't have any relationships with them. I want to make
That's
that
what we're
clear.
looking for.
So
That's always what we're
Yep.
here
official disclaimer, but I
Yep.
love the product. That's also an official disclaimer here. So it's a product analytics platform. And what's great, they are different in two ways. The first thing is they combined all the features we need and they stripped everything else. So it's a kind of a hybrid between Google Analytics and Hotjar and amplitude or mix panel and Launch Darkly and so on. So they have a suite of products actually where you have the measurement analytics of your application, but they also have surveys and they have session recordings and all those features that at the end, they have feature flags, A/B tests, was talking about Launch Darkly. So it's a kind of the unique product that you need to re-instrument your application. And as a product team and as a developer, yeah, I think you have everything you need for a very long time. So that's the first thing. The other thing is it's entirely usage-based. So it's really like AWS when you look at the pricing, and they have a very generous free tier. So I'm a startup. We are in the hundreds of users and companies. Right? We're not a B2C app with millions of users, and we are just so far from paying with them because you have 1 million free event per month. I think we turn at 10K events per month on our end. So it's very easy to start with, and then it's very scalable. And the pricing is fully transparent. They're very proud of it. Yeah, this is what makes them different.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It presents itself as a product analytics platform. So that's obviously something Moshe and I have talked about in the past, and it's not a product we had spoken about. We talked about Amplitude, Mix Panel, even Pendo, and some of these other products that were in the product analytics space. And PostHog fitting in that space is really interesting. So yeah, as we look into it, I mean, from the analytics perspective, like how much presence do they have within the product analytics space?
So for the presence, I cannot answer to that. To be very honest, I don't know how many users or customers they have. What I can say is when I am on a Slack group, right, a community Slack group around product, and people ask, hey, by the way, what kind of platform do you use for your analytics? Every time someone is going to say, we are now using PostHog. I don't know, at least 20% of the people I meet now at least know or have tried PostHog, but it's absolutely not a signal or an indicator that they have 20% of the market. I think the traditional tools, Heap, Amplitude, Mixpanel are still more popular. But with the developers, when you are more on the technical side and you see analytics as instrumenting your code, PostHog is very, very strong here because, again, all the experience is fine-tuned toward technical people and the developers, so they just love it. And my developer who implemented PostHog in Homeric, he hates integrations. And each time we try a new API, we are going to take their SDK and it's not working and we have to contact the support. It's very hard to have great APIs, great docs, and a great implementation experience for developers. You have Stripe, of course, stellar experience here. Everybody loves the Stripe API, and that's the same thing with PostHog. My developer just came back to me and said, that was perfectly documented. It was very straightforward. I was able to do everything we needed very quickly, and you could see the quality here. And there are a lot about the craft that building a product is something that you need to be you have to take care of your product, right? You have to go into the details, and the level of craftsmanship is something that for me is part of their identity and something you can really feel when you work with them.
There is on the other end, there is also a risk there when you gear it to developers, because developers do have different mindset and point of view from product managers and other people in the organization. And many times they will be okay with, adding work for them to develop things or to not get everything out of the box, where business people might want a no-code type of interfaces that will help them, reduce the needs to even ask a developer to do something. When we were looking back then at the product analytics, product like Pendo and Heap had a very simple integration, and then all the setup of the events was done through the interface. Where Amplitude and Mixpanel, you have to raise it through the code. So there is much more work for the developers there. So it's two very different ways to
Mhm.
solve the same problem, but it's coming from different perspectives.
Yeah, but things changed around this because Ensure Heap was the kind of the first player to bring auto capture. So it's like we're going to capture all the events by default, especially on the web side of things, so page views and so on. And then we will let you create your events after the facts. Now all the platforms do this. PostHog does it too, by the way. So you can still have all those events by default, and then you create your actions and insights on the top of them. So someone with no coding experience can use PostHog, the PostHog interface, to really create all the data, analysis and presentation on the top of the platform. But even there, the PostHog UI is designed in a way that it's here to be effective and efficient, right? It's not about great, sleek UX experience. It's really about information density. It's about how can we be like a spreadsheet, like very, very functional, but without having all the drawbacks of a spreadsheet, right? And you can manipulate a lot of data very quickly. You can go through the data very quickly. You can create insights dashboards very quickly. And it's sure for them, it's their identity and positioning. So when you say, you are maybe in a large organization, someone wants no code, they don't want to see that technical aspect of things. I'm pretty sure the post-hoc team would say, we are developer centric. You're just not our current ICP. And please just pick another tool. They
Absolutely.
are very, very clear about, who they're working for. And I
Right.
think it's very helpful and people just love the approach too.
That's a great point. Like I'm looking at their site and it says defining our ICP or ideal customer profile is the most important thing we ever did. And there looks like product engineers are who their primary focus is. Really interesting. They do an excellent job on their site of laying out their mission, what they're doing. Very transparent. Great documentation.
Interesting. So when we did our research for this series, we did realize that those companies that we talked about back then, and it's more than 3 years ago that we did the series for product analytics, they since then added session replay to their platform. So now session replay is not so much product on its own, although some of the other products we will have here, it will be more focused on them because they started that way and then they expanded to other areas, where some products like Amplitude and Pendo, they started with analytics and then they expanded into session replay as well. Do you know with the PostHog what was expansion of their product like?
So I cannot say when the session recording feature was added to the suite, but for sure it's I was going to say always been part of the kind of core scope of the product, even though I guess they incrementally released the features because the scope that they defined not moving a lot. They're just about what we're doing, want to do it in a better way. That again, they are laser focused on their mission with what they have identified. And now that they have those features, they're working on some very interesting stuff, which I guess could be for another episode, like CDPs and data pipelines. But for me, it was always part of what they explained about this is what we're building. It's at the core of the product.
Yeah. So tell us about the session replay. How is it working at PostHog, and what's make it unique there?
So I want to say this is not what makes them unique because I think the feature is straightforward. This is how I'm going to say, but this is what you need, right? And there is no fluff, which is what I love about their feature. Very straight to the point. So the way it works, very typical if you know tools like Hotjar, for example. So each time you have someone on your app, they will record a session. You have access to a list of sessions. You can filter right by any parameter that they record about the user or about the session. So you can find, records from a given country or from a given. So they have a concept of people in the app where each user is tracked individually with the. So you have your anonymous users, you have your signed in users. So you can, of course, just watch recording for one person, these kind of things. And then, so you have player, you click on play, you will something I liked, and I guess they all do this, but they keep inactivity periods. So if nothing happens, you just jump to 1 minute later when someone is back, or these kind of things, and then you can see the clicks. You have you can of course follow the mouse. You can follow the scrolling, and what's interesting and again, this is not a feature I've been using every day for 10 years, so I kind of forgot how the other tools work. But what I like is the fact that you have some overlay with some features. So you have your heat map, right, of where the clicks happen. It's always funny to see they have a rage click detector. So if someone clicks many times in a row, you know that someone is angry at your app. And then you can also see the scrolling with, bands on the screen to see this is the lowest that someone went onto your page during the replay, which is always interesting to understand. If you have a landing page, did they just check the top part of it, or did they scroll down to the bottom of your page?
Mm-hmm. Do they support both desktop and mobile?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So I'm not an expert for their mobile SDKs because we're mostly a B2B web app, but it's supported.
I see. Yeah.
Or please check just to be sure I'm not saying something wrong, but I'm 85% sure it's supported.
Okay, cool. And so now you use it for your product, I assume, but you're also a coach and consultant to other companies. So have you seen it being used in other places as well?
Yes, and it's very interesting because as a coach, the topic of data and product analytics, it's something there are a lot of needs. I'm going to say it like this on the market today. Many organization needs to be stronger about it. And odds are for the people listening to us that your product analytics is not at the top of the game, and it deserves to be at the top of the game because you can learn so much and you can solve so many debates internally with good instrumentation of your applications. But it's hard to say just use PostHog, right? Because again, that positioning around developers, when you work with a large organization, for example. So I have a current customer, actually. It's a financial sector major player here in Canada. And it's just impossible for them just to think of how could we use that kind of tool on a daily basis, because everything they do is we ship requirements, we order something to IT, right? And then it's done. So the marketing department needs to be completely independent because product here is not even something that is really organized. So it's still more driven by marketing. And the marketing people just cannot imagine themselves in that kind of tool. So we are having those debates and discussions about do you need to reposition some marketing people maybe so they can be a bit more, not even technical, but much, let's say, data oriented and comfortable with playing with a more technical interface, or you need to have that kind of enterprise platform that will, do everything for you, prepare the coffee, and you just have to consult a report every week, right? You have to. It's a very different mindset. Of course, as innovators, we should have a preference on we have our hands in the engine and under the hood, so we can really move things and align the pieces so our product can succeed. But it's not how many organizations think, definitely.
Yeah. Some problems I've seen in the past with marketing departments like that is that it's hard for them to work in an agile way because they want to be prepared and prepare their campaigns and have all the materials ready and stuff like that. And all of that takes time. Traditionally, it takes time. So it's hard for them to pivot quickly based on what they see in the data, but rather want to have okay, this is what I'm going to do in a month from now, in 2 months from now, and stuff like that. So it's also very different time sets.
I think the most concrete illustration of how it can be very hard for non-agile companies is, let's say you want to add an event in your backend. So you have a new record in your database and you want to know when that thing happens, because it could be a new user, or it could be a new playbook for me, or it could be a new booking in Airbnb, those kind of things. And it's better to use the backend as a reference. instead of the front end, because the front end could tell you it's done, but it's not really done in the database. So it's super fast. You just have to tell one developer, you need to add one line of code to say event.track and send information right to PostHog. And if I do that with my own team, it's going to be done in 10 minutes. If you are working in a very large non-agile organization, it's going to be like, okay, we need to write a requirement, and then we need to go in evaluation, and then the team will need to check capacity, even for very, very simple things, right? And they will tell you should wait a few weeks for that. Of course, the kind of velocity you can set up is very different.
Yeah.
Does it have the ability to block sensitive information? Because I'm thinking if you're a healthcare company that is doing these session recordings, you might have people doing sensitive information inside your application. You might want to mask that or hide that from people that are going back and rewatching it. Does it have that capability?
Yeah, so this is where open source is also very interesting, right? Because you can self-host PostHog, right? You can download it basically, and you own it on your own infrastructure. So if you're in a healthcare company and you want to have PostHog running on your servers where all the environments are HIPAA certified, those kind of things, you can, and it's free, by the way. So it's very, if you are technical enough, you have the resources to deploy and host PostHog, you can do a lot just go into your environments. Then when you are inside the application, for the moment, I'm not sure that they don't have strong features around data governance, like segment, for example, where you can really define for each parameter flowing through that this one is sensitive, like tier 3, tier 2, and so on. Like I remember the red flags and the yellow flags. But you can also control how you send data. But what I can confirm for sure is they are GDPR accompanying these kind of things. When you do a replay and they fill a form, you cannot see the email, you cannot see the passwords, of course. So those kind of things are already supported.
Okay, excellent. And that might come down to when a company is looking at PostHog, how sensitive or how restrictive do they want this information to be? So
for the organizations, I know when they work with really sensitive data, anyway, they don't want to use cloud-based applications. So that's great. That's open source. You guys just take the package and you install it on your infrastructure, which is the best way because it just becomes an internal product.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's easier for them to identify email and password because those are usually defined as such in the HTML or in the pages. But other information like, names or things like that, do they show that as well? Or
so what's interesting, and this is where maybe I'm not a typical user, I don't know, but because it's so easy to deploy PostHog, we want to use PostHog as our CDP, so customer data platform. So this is where we want all the data to flow in so we can reconcile information from the CRM, from Intercom, like customer success tool, from the application, and have this holistic view of a user. So we can understand from their first website visit, their sales process and how they use the app, so we can make calculations and understand their journey with Homeric. Of course, you don't have to do that, right? This is our choice here. So we have a lot of information. So of course, we have names, we could have addresses, these kind of things. And for the moment, and here, maybe I'm not using the features properly, but we haven't set up anything around you need to mask those kind of information, or we need some confidentiality. The way that we handle this is by restricting the access to PostHog. So we made sure that only relevant people will access to the tool, which is basically me as a product manager and my designer. This is how we manage that.
Yeah, but that's something to check because PII information is something that is now very known that needs to be taken care of, its security and stuff like that. And it's not just an email, it's also address and if you have social security numbers or SIN numbers or stuff like that, these are always very sensitive.
The best way to manage it, by the way, is to first don't collect that kind of information if you don't need it. So we are very careful about what we collect, and we make sure that we have a good reason to do it. But again, I love the product. I'm in it every day, but I'm not the expert from PostHog. So please check exactly what features are offered, because it's obvious they are aware of it, right? So, but now what kind of PII management feature do they really have? It's something I'm not an expert of, to be clear here.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Of course, I mean, it's one person experience, and then There are
No,
other
but I can
podcasts.
just imagine maybe someone from PostHog will listen to this episode and they will say, "What kind of bozo was on that episode talking about us?" And I don't want to be that person.
Don't worry. Listen,
Look, call and help out.
yeah, but that's also why we're doing this, not with the company, but with users. So
Yep.
they can also hear, what people know, what they don't know, or what can be improved also.
Absolutely.
What about insights into the data? Because some session replay systems out there just end at the replay itself, and some of them are actually can give you overlays of segments and replay, or give you insights from the replays of multiple segments. Is that something that if they support?
So this is not how I use session recording today with them.
Okay.
We basically just watch and make sure the objectives we give for each of our page is achieved or not. They have a lot of analytics tools that are embedded with the different features, so beyond session recordings. And I don't think they have insight generation directly from the recording. And what they have, if I remember correctly, is the fact that you basically have the playback, right? You can watch it and you may have some additional information. And then what's interesting is you also have an inspector. So you can recheck what's happening in the console, what's happening with different codes, right? Behind that, or the network activity, which is great to understand, if they made a bad request to your API, these kind of things. So you can really inspect what's the equivalent of what's happening in the Chrome inspector. So it's awesome because you can get the data from users. So you don't have to try to reproduce some issues yourself, right? You can re-access to the information from the recording.
So this is inspecting the front end or the back end as well?
So it's from the front end because, of course, PostHog is the recording comes from the client, but you can see all the code that the front end is doing to you back in API. So let's say, for example, I need to, you want to log in, very simple, right? You're going to send your login password, you need to retrieve a token. If for whatever reason the API is down, you will get a 500 error. You will see that in the inspector, right? They try to make a code and that code was an error, and you can check, oh, that's okay, interesting. The backend was done at the time, and maybe we didn't have a notification on the backend side, and then we can start, investigate what happened, when it was. We have all the information we need to troubleshoot the situation.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because I'm trying to think about the analytics and ultimately the AI, the AI aspect of all this. But when it's consuming video, it must be hard for them if they don't have the analytics as part of the session replay or the insights as part of it. It might be hard for them to consume the video because there's no dialogue necessarily that I can tell. It's just recording the user screen, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
but then there is a good question, right? It's awesome. Yes, that's a lot of data, and AI we sure can create value from this. But what do you need, and how mature you are about your practices, right? And just trying to make sure that some people will kind of watch and monitor what's happening. I'm not sure many organizations can say, we are experts of the recordings and the replays that we have. Most teams, and I coach, right? So I have a lot of examples around me. They don't do it on a regular basis. So the first thing is keep a simple feature, but then have the consistency, right, to check and leverage that data on a regular basis first, right? Before saying, oh, I need more features, I need more sophisticated teams. In product, I truly believe that simple things and principles can get you very far, right? And we have more issues with consistency and applying the right practices rather than not having advanced enough tools or data to make some decisions. So I prefer some simple tools that will kind of help me have consistency and to be in the data every day, right? So to make sure I can learn continuously is more important than having very advanced features.
Yeah, this is interesting. Moshe and I had a previous series about user research. And so I'm trying to think of how user research and session replay come together, because you are basically doing user research of how they're using your tool through a session, right? So I'm wondering how they both play together, if they do both play together, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or.
Yes, of course I have. I think what's important here is, and something I tell my team all the time, what problem are we trying to solve, right? Why are we watching those? And we need to have questions to answer before starting. So what kind of test do we want to do? What kind of question do we want answered? And then your signals, insight to answer that question and make a product decision will come from recording, but it can also come from a user interview, can also come from an external source, whatever. But the idea is really to be in that learning mode so we can answer questions. If you just watch recordings for the sake of watching recordings, yes, you will see a couple of things that, oh, that person got lost, and yes, the button maybe is not at the right position, and okay, fair enough. But this is not deep learning about, oh, we realize that they don't scroll, to the bottom of the page, and maybe because they haven't found what they were looking for, because during some interviews, we realize that they are using some keywords that they don't see on the landing page, so they don't scroll through it. Let's try to put that keyword at the top of it to see if it becomes the enabler for more scrolling and going through our landing page. So yeah, this is how everything can be hybrid, but each tool brings a different dimension to answer your questions. So user interviews, I love to use them for the why. I hate surveys, for example, because I think it's so easily biased, and there is a difference between what people say and what they do anyway. So when I talk to them, it's really about tell me your story and why. And once I am in the session recording or in some product analytics tools, it's really about now I want to see how you behave. And I know that what you do is not exactly what you said. And when we can see those differences, is how you make smarter product decisions.
That's a good distinction. Yep.
Yeah. That's where what I mentioned before about products that actually can give you insights from multiple sessions rather than one at a time. That's where it's helpful, because if you need to find those insights by watching many sessions, like we know, one point of data is not enough. So if you look at one session and say, okay, this person did not get to this point, maybe it's specifically for them. But if you can show the same pattern over multiple sessions, that's where it actually gives you those insights that are much more relevant.
I think you're touching on a very interesting point here regarding PostHog, because they don't have built-in insight features when they try to analyze data for you. And I would say this is not their mission. So where they are very different, and I think for me this is the core, not feature, but the core product choice that made me love the product, is that they really understood the different data structures and the different levels of data that you need to do everything you want. So you have first, you define events, and those events are just information flowing, right? And raw data, and they do nothing about it. And then on the top of events, you can create actions. So with those actions, you say, basically you say, PostHog, I want you to monitor all the events going through. And when you have those conditions, I want you to generate one action. And that action becomes a new data series, or it can be a notification you send to Slack, or it can be the various things. But then you kind of filter and create a first layer of intelligence on the top of your events. Once you have those actions, then you can create insights. So then insight is really when you create individual charts or data tables or those kind of things, but you do it yourself, right? And what's great about analysis here, that when you are at that level of data analysis, so if you have a data table, for example, they will create for you a correlation analysis. So they will tell you, by the way, we analyze your data, but we are on the insight level here, and we realize that there is a statistical significant difference between the time of the day when people connect and the ratio of your conversions. So maybe you need to convert people in the morning. I'm, of course, making up that example here, but they will do it for you at the insight level. And then above the insight, you combine your different insights to create dashboards. And all those data concepts are completely independent from each other, and you really work at each level independently, so you can recreate your stack, right, of multiple layers of processed data. And they're not trying to make you jump from raw events to dashboard or insight ready for you. They really give you all the flexibility so you can recreate exactly what you want to measure. And for me, this is the only tool with that flexibility, and also being, I would say, exhaustive about this is the kind of concepts and data structures I need to create. And again, when I talk like this, right, we are leaning strongly toward a technical approach of how you manage data. But again, this is their ICP and positioning and how they're truly unique.
Which is really fitting what you said earlier, that it's almost built for product engineers rather than for product managers. But it's interesting. I mean, we also, as product managers, we have our affinity towards how we want to work with our products. So some of us have this affinity to data and analytics and do it on our own, and we give us the data that we need and we will find the insights, where many of the products out there are going, maybe the request was from product people that are less have affinity to analytics or to engineering, and they wanted to give us the insights already and tell us what we should do or stuff like that.
So I can confirm that if you are a product manager, right, and you are not comfortable with manipulating data, right, PostHog definitely is not for you. You will need to ask the support of your dev team, or what's happening, again, maybe more in large organizations, but you may have a data analyst in your team, right? Or now they are called product ops analysts or these kind of things. But we can see now share resources across product teams, data analysts, and then those people would just love playing PostHog because they would create everything. And then as a non-technical product manager, you just go to the dashboards. You can just go to maybe just check some individual insights, and you don't go into the lower levels of the application.
Yeah.
But again, you won't be autonomous to use it. I come from a technical background. In the startups I was always the only person anyway, so I had to jump into it.
Yeah.
I love playing with data, so of course I'm the right target for them.
Yeah.
So I'm autonomous, but if not, having the support of a data analyst may be what's needed if you are in a large organization. But I think for any product, PostHog or not PostHog, at some point you need people comfortable with creating data series and organizing the data correctly, so you can leverage it for your BI research.
Absolutely. What about customer support? Do they use session replay to see how users used it and find specific problems with specific sessions?
So nothing, I guess, can prevent you from giving access to your customer success team. Say, go to the session recordings. Once you have the ID of the user, you can check what happened.
Right.
You can do this. For us, we are a small team, so the product manager is also the CEO and is also the main customer success agent.
So the person that wears the hat, he wears the hat.
It's all on me, which is great, and this is how it works in startups. But yeah, you just give access to the recordings. It's possible. Then I wonder if you can maybe share or export. You can share for sure. I can confirm. I'm sure of it. You have links. So at some point, the customer agent could say, "By the way, I have this issue. We don't understand what's happening. The client had an issue at that time. Can you check the recording and give me the link?" And then the customer agent can just watch it. That's definitely possible.
Yeah. That's another use case I've seen in the past that is being used. So it's the why behind it. It's behind why to use session replay. I think
I can confirm. I have a very strong case about this. One of our customers on the Homeric platform, she was not technical at all, right? And we had a good relationship with her. Say, hey, you know what? Everything has been created for you. Your colleague already set up the playbook, and so you just have to come and read and confirm that everything is aligned with your needs. And I don't know, we couldn't understand what was happening. She would try to log in, and then she would get errors, and she would try to reset her passwords, and it was not working. And we were like, but what's happening, right? So it was really kind of a customer support case. And by watching the recordings, we realized that she was never going through the login page. She was going back to her emails, clicking on the invitation link that was sent when she created her account at the beginning. And basically she would land on an expired page, but she could still enter her password. So she was entering a new password every time she wanted to log in. And, she wasn't technical enough to tech savvy enough to realize that was not the right way to connect to an application. So she kept trying to set up a new password. Of course, she got errors because the password setting was expired, right? Because she already did it once, and she felt completely stuck, and we had to see to understand what was happening. And thank you, we got the session recording, so we can say you're just not on the right page, right? To remove that link from your bookmarks. Go to the Homeric website, click on login, and that's the link you want to save here. And then everything worked well because there were no bugs or technical issues. It was just a bad link that she was using.
Yeah. There is other systems for customer supports that customer supports can take control over your session. They can do it with you, almost like sharing your page or stuff like that. This is not it. This is after the fact that someone had done something and they came to you. But I don't see why it will be any issue to use something like that, to not to waste time for the user to work with them, but rather just, while we're checking this, look into the session and then, oh, there is something wrong here. Any other use cases you can think about why people would use PostHog for session replay?
Yeah, there is one, but I can already hear my team laughing at me. I'm a very strong believer, and I can also kind of love it anyway, of feeling the vibe of your application. So with many events, I'm going to create integrations with Slack, for example, and we have dedicated channels where we can really see live what's happening. And it's very interesting to get a message telling you, okay, there is someone from the US in Washington, D.C. I arrived on your homepage, and then I go to the pricing page, and I can see live. You can when you just watch that when you have time on Slack, you kind of understand the patterns about, okay, they went homepage, they left, or they went to pricing page, and it helped me realize sometimes I think we have an issue, right? Because we can see those people browsing some pages, but they never go to the sign up page, right? What's missing? Maybe the CTA is not at the right place, or it's not the right label, those kind of things. How can we improve conversion here? So yeah, we have a kind of a continuous monitoring, and I love when it's like you have notification telling you sign up, those kind of things. It gives me a lot of energy, and so they have great integration. Well, they have waybooks basically, right? And I love that idea of sending data everywhere. So depending on what's happening, I'm also a big user of Make for automations, and then you can create your own reports, and you can really connect PostHog with various systems. And I see my startup also as a product, right? And I want to make sure that the entire tool stack that we use is going to be integrated together, so we can make data flow in a way that everybody, whatever function we are in, will benefit from the data flowing through PostHog. So yeah, all that integration ports, waybooks, this is for me the biggest usage I have of the platform.
Amazing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like something that's great about it. Something Michelle and I typically ask, if they are listening, what's an area where they can possibly improve when it comes to session replay?
About session replays, I for sure there is something to do, I think, about overlays. So when you watch, because I'm watching the screen, if I can have some kind of augmented experience, so I can see some data about what's happening in the console, for example, or when there is a click, I have some metadata that can be displayed, those kind of things, to make sure that I can watch and learn about what's happening at the same time. I think there is something to do here, because it's just the way I use it. But then for me, it's redoing the job, and it's more important to have that suite of features well integrated together rather than having one very sophisticated tool or feature on its own.
So from our perspective, they're doing a good job with integrating all of them together.
Oh, yes, because I have my replays, and then I can click on the event that would take me to the raw data listing, and then I can click on the person, I can get to that person profile, and then I can check their analytics, or I can check maybe if they were part of a segment for an A/B test, those kind of things. And yeah, this is where it's amazing, because we replaced 7 tools by implementing PostHog. We got rid of Google Analytics, we got rid of Hotjar, we got rid of Mixpanel, we got rid of Pendo, we got rid of Launch Darkly. It's kind of the leading tool to manage your feature flags and how you route features. And yeah, now everything is in PostHog, and everything is communicating, which is great. And now we also got rid of Metabase because we were using Metabase for all the dashboarding and creating reports. But I feel like their dashboarding features are good enough. It's not perfect because creating a dashboard tool is incredibly complex and it's kind of a crazy venture. But what they have, that's a job for us. And we just were able to switch everything to PostHog.
That sounds like a great success story. I mean, that reduced cost, streamline your product stack of tools, and that's really exciting to hear. And it sounds like and all that's consumption based, right?
Absolutely. So for us, as a still very early stage startups, entirely free. Yeah, definitely. It's great to see. But if we can talk about the free aspect of it, because I think it's we are in a new era, right? At some point, all the SaaS, they all had a very great free plan, free tiers, right? And it was very easy to have to use your SaaS for a low cost or for free. We can think about Pendo, for example. I think this is a very good illustration of the evolution of things. And as those startups become more mature, they are going to have more enterprise customers, I guess. So their ACV is going up. And at some point, all the startups and small scale-ups, you are not helping them, right, to improve their ACV and LTV and those kind of metrics. So they increase their prices, and then it becomes too expensive. Segment also is a good example of that. Segment was very easy to use, great free tier at the beginning, not very expensive. Now it's going to cost you 5K or more, even if you are a very young startup. They have a great startup plan, by the way, but after that, it's going to cost you thousands per year. And I think it's harder now for startups to find a good suite of tools that you can leverage for free at the very, very beginning. They also may assume that now as a startup, you can be very well funded, so you can pay for your tools, those kind of things. But for sure, it's much more expensive now than 5 years ago to deploy those kind of tools.
Right.
And it's great. It's refreshing to have something like PostHog arriving and saying it's user-based, but we have a real free tier. It will stay like this, and you only pay once you grow. Because I'm happy to pay maybe a bit more over the long term, because if I'm successful, I'm happy to share that success, right? Especially if they were part of the enabling technologies that helped us scale. But for sure, at the beginning, we are a bootstrap startup. It's great to feel the support of having a free access.
Yeah.
To
And you can
tools.
also always make the decision to download it and host it yourself if it's cost effective for you.
Absolutely. The fact that they're also giving us that choice is great. By the way, talking about open source tools, you can also check Metabase, because it was also a great experience, even though it was at the end redundant with PostHog. And you can also host that tool for free, and you can just use it with the rest of your tech stack.
Amazing. That's great. I think I don't have any more questions. What about you, Matt?
No, I don't have any other questions. So I think this was a great conversation. I was not familiar with PostHog prior to this. They were a new tool to me. Maybe because I'm not a product engineer classically. So this is very exciting. Obviously, it plays into the analytics that I enjoy. And they did a really good job with their website. There's a lot of great documentation on there about the company itself and about what they provide. So I definitely recommend everybody go check it out.
I think it's worth reading it for everybody, right? If you want to see a startup with very strong identity and positioning on who we are, why we do it, how we do it, and for whom, I think their website is really, it's an experience by itself. So I think it's really worth it to just have a look, so you can really understand, what you can do now. And they are working on some features for like customer data platform, data warehousing. So again, they are going to add an entire new pillar of that product analytics stack. And I think we will be able to get rid of even more tools in the near future. And they're still a pretty recent startup, right? They were part of Y Combinator, but I forgot the year.
2020.
2020, right? So it's a very young startup, maybe scale up now. And also it's a pretty small team, right? I think now it's around 40 employees. So it's definitely not a huge thing like the major players on the market.
Pendo,
and I think it's a great reminder of what a great product team can do when you are a small player like them, and you can really reshape not the industry, maybe not yet, but at least reshape how you can do product analytics, and you have a very unique value proposition, and they definitely have the traction. I can see that in many places that people love PostHog and say, oh, we tried PostHog for the first time and we're not coming back. I can see that with PostHog and also a bit with Linear about the productivity tools for the product teams. Maybe finally a tool to make a dent to the Jira kingdom. But again, what's very interesting with Linear, very strong ICP about who are working for the kind of product technical people. It's all about being effective and efficient. And you can see that in their DNA, which is completely different from the other players in that area, like ClickUp or Monday or the kind of thing when they didn't focus on an ICP. So they retry to create a new generic tool for everybody. And I think they're not able to compete with Atlassian and Jira, right? Because you just have so much to do. But when you really pick your niche and you want to be the king of your first hill before becoming the king of the mountain, even a small player can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the open source strategy, they really are much bigger than 40 employees because they
absolutely. That's a very good point. The community behind them is huge, and it's how they grew. We're going to take care of the developers working with us. People are creating plugins. You have, of course, many things in the ecosystem. And when everybody's happy, you have that organic growth just by building your community. And that's a theme, right, around startup growth, about you can be community driven in your growth, and they embraced it definitely. And I think it's going to be a great use case study for that approach.
Interesting. Very nice. So where can people reach out to you if they want to learn more?
If you want to learn more about Homeric, so you can please go to homeric.ai. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn too. So Vincent Pavero, and maybe I will give you my link. And as a product coach, I have a website on Vincent.pm, which I would like to update more often. But anyway, this is where you can also know more about my product mindset and principles. And then you have a few links, of course, to connect with me if you want to.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Vincent. This was great. Really enjoyed the talk with you this morning. Thank you for coming to the pod.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm super happy to talk about what I love. And yeah, PostHog was definitely, it's rare, right, that you have that kind of love at first sight experience with a tool. It's been years since the last time I had that kind of reaction. So yeah, I'm happy to share a few good things about them.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Vincent. Great to hear it. Pleasure to talk with you today. Michelle, thank you as always. Thank you to all the listeners, and we'll talk to everybody next time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.